Hey folks, this is Kelani. With patch 8.2 we should have plenty of content to keep us occupied, romping around Mechagon collecting everything in sight, trying to foil the plans and plots of our enemies down in Nazjatar and everything in between. But what about the rewards? There's got to be some goodies for us to chase after to make this all worthwhile, right? Well, you would be absolutely correct. There's at least 30 brand new mounts coming in patch 8.2, so what are we waiting for? Let's jump right in. Let's kick things off by looking at the new mounts coming from the Mechagon zone, because there's quite a few exciting ones here. One of the most interesting mounts from Mechagon is probably the Mechanocat mount. Now it might not look like much right now, but this cat is a testing ground for a new type of customization. You can collect new paints around Mechagon and apply them to this mount to give you a wide variety of mount colours for the same actual mount. It's like collecting recolors of your mount, but in a rather unique way. You can repaint your Mechanocat at the little painting station in Bondo's yard, so it's very easy to swap things around, and right now it doesn't even cost you anything either. All you have to do is find the paints you want. Hopefully this leads into some other types of customization later on down the road. To get your hands on the Mechanocat mount, you'll need to collect quite a lot of the spare part materials from the Mechagon zone. It's 2,000 spare parts, 5 energy cells, and 4 chain igniter coils. You can buy the igniter coils for 35k each, but the rest you're going to have to grind out the hard way. This took me about 4 days on the PTR, so it's not too bad at all. The other really exciting mount that a lot of people probably know about by now is the Mechacycle Model W. This is a very shiny mono-wheel bike mount which is probably going to be everywhere after a few weeks in patch 8.2 because everyone can get their hands on it, providing you put in a little bit of time. I love the detail on this mount, and I hop on the little temporary mounts that are sometimes available in Mechagon whenever I can, because riding around on these wheel mounts is super cool and fun. This mount comes from the Mecha Done achievement, which is going to take you quite a while to get through for sure, because you have to do pretty much everything on Mechagon, including contribute to every type of construction project, collect every paint colour for the Mechanocat, collect 25 different blueprints, and finish off all the story content. We'll have to see just how long that takes when patch 8.2 goes live for real. If you can't wait to get the shiny version of the wheel bike, there's actually a rusty version which should be a lot easier to obtain. These rusty versions are available for pretty much every mechanical mount in Mechagon, which is really interesting because you have the option of joining the Junkanomes with their scrappy look, or you can ride around in style with the polished up versions. It's a nice little touch. The Junk Heap Drifter comes from a rare spawn called Rust Feather, so that's probably a low drop chance mount. Let's move on to the Mechano Spider mount. This kind of mount has been long sought after ever since we had to kill this type of mob in places like Ulduar way back in the day. Now we can finally have a Mechano Spider of our own. This is the polished up version, as you can see, very shiny and gold, and this one comes from the Mechagon dungeon as a drop. It's currently listed in the loot table of the aerial oppression unit in Operation Mechagon, so it looks like a boss drop, but that could change by the time this goes live. As with most Mechagon mounts, there's also a rusty version. The rusty Mechano Crawler might not look as shiny, and its check engine light might always be on, but it might be easier to obtain because it looks like it might be a zone drop from Mechagon. Either a random drop from rare monsters or just a random drop in general. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Some players have already received it from rares on Mechagon, so we know it comes from rare monsters at the very least. But you won't have to rely on random drops if you really want a Mechano Spider. One of the first quests you get in Mechagon will lead to you creating your very own spider mount, the Scrap Forged Mecha Spider. This one is a bit of an in-between in terms of wear, not quite the super shiny golden dungeon drop, but it's also not a rusting bucket of bolts. You also make this one yourself, so that makes it super special, obviously. This mount is a guaranteed drop after you finish the mount questline, which provides you with 1 quest per day, so keep coming back each day and you'll have this mount in no time. There's also some new flying mounts from Mechagon which look really cool. The first is the aerial unit R21X. This is another dungeon drop, so you can expect to see at least 2 mounts come from Operation Mechagon that we know of, and this flying machine comes from the very last boss, King Mechagon. You can actually see this model flying around the Mechagon island sometimes, so it's going to be fun having one of your own. You can also pick up a rusty version, the Rust Bolt Resistor. These were probably picked up by the Junkanomes after King Mechagon decided it wasn't shiny enough for his taste, so he threw it away in the garbage, but the Junkanomes picked it up and got it running again. And now they're selling it to us for over 500k gold. I think we might be getting played on this one just a little bit, but this mount will be obtainable once you hit Exalted with our new gnome friends, and it's going to cost you quite a pretty penny. It does look awesome though. And that's all of the new mounts in Mechagon that we know of at any rate, so let's move on to Nazjatar because there's some really cool looking mounts from the other new zone coming in patch 8.2. There's a new model of rays which look awesome. I'll definitely be riding around on these for a while whenever I pick them up. The first colour we have is the Ajari Bloat Ray. The flavour text for these critters is a little disturbing, but this lovely yellow ray comes from the glory of the Eternal Raider achievement, so that's one major source of mounts ticked off the list, I guess. I kind of wish the glory achievements would reward unique mounts all throughout the expansion. It kind of eats away at the special factor when it's just a recolour of a mount you can get fairly easily. But we also have a black and red coloured ray, which looks quite daunting indeed. This one drops from Soundless in Nazjatar, which is probably going to be a rare spawn that looks exactly like the mount. Another rare to spawn camp until you get the mount. How exciting. We haven't seen many evil looking mounts in a while, so the colours on this one might just fit your super villain transmog that we all know you've been working on. Now this one might be my favourite colour theme for the rays though. The Ann Cohen Wave Ray has a gold and pearl looking saddle which looks amazing in my opinion, with a purplish body and light blue accents. I think it works incredibly well, and I'm a little jealous because it might be an Alliance only colour. The Ann Cohen are the Alliance faction down in Nazjatar, so with it being called the Ann Cohen Wave Ray, it wouldn't be a huge leap to think it's going to be a reputation reward. On the Horde side we have the Unshackled Wave Ray. Again, the Unshackled are the Nazjatar faction that the Horde will be spending time with, and having one colour for the Horde and one colour for the Alliance would make a lot of sense, I guess, especially if you tie them to the factions and make them a reward from Exalted or whatever. We're not too sure yet because it's not marked like that in the game, but it's not all too unreasonable to make that assumption. I prefer the Ann Cohen colours, but the Unshackled Wave Ray looks pretty cool too. Another mount that comes from Nazjatar is the Snapdragon mount. These were units back in Warcraft 3 and we haven't really seen them since then, but they're making a grand return as a shiny new mount. Alright, I guess they're not all too shiny, but if you like running around on a Naga lizard thing, these should be right up your alley. The Snapdragon Kelpstalker comes from a quest called A Gift from Neri, so I'm assuming we'll make some new friends down in Nazjatar and they'll be gifting us these mounts eventually. The Deep Coral Snapdragon is a purpley variant and comes from a similar type of quest, except this time it's a gift from Akana. We might have to choose which mount to accept, depending on whether we can make friends with more than one of these quest givers at a time, or it might just be two different questlines which reward a Snapdragon by the end. There is one other Snapdragon mount, but it's a bit different. The Royal Snapdragon is definitely shinier with his golden helmet and harness, but it doesn't come from a gifting quest. Instead, it's just from the Nazjatar zone, which means it's probably a drop from a rare monster, or it's just a world drop in Nazjatar. And then we have the Tide Stallion mounts. These look super cool, and I love that they managed to make a handful more horse mounts underwater by mashing them together with a seahorse to create a seahorse horse. It's wonderful, and they actually look really awesome. We don't have much information on where they come from right now, as many of them are marked as placeholder, but we have a few different colours that we can look at. The Crimson Tide Stallion is a really pretty coral kind of red. We also have the Ink Scale Deep Seeker, which shows off some darker colours, as you might expect from something called Ink Scale. And if neither of those tickle your fancy, we also have Fabios. How can you resist this marvellous horse? He emerges from the water, fins swaying lazily in the breeze, sun-kissed scales glittering. He is Fabios. That's fantastic. Hopefully this one isn't too hard to come by, but again we don't really have any solid info on these mounts. Something that is interesting though is that Wowhead managed to get a glimpse of some Tide Stallions that actually have armor and saddles. None of the models currently previewable in-game have this armor right now, so I'm wondering if that's why they're marked as placeholder. It makes sense that the model with a saddle is more likely to be an actual mount, right? So we might have a few more mounts to collect which use this Tide Stallion model than we can see right now. So keep your fingers crossed and Nazjatar might end up more of a mount goldmine than what we think. There's one last mount model that comes from the depths of Nazjatar, the Snapback Scuttler. I love that this mount is a thing in general and that they made it walk sideways. You can see the little harness where our characters will be facing, so this chap is full on sideways skittering, which I can't wait to see running all over the place. This is marked as a Nazjatar zone drop, so that means it will probably be a rare monster drop or a rare drop in any place in Nazjatar, but with some other mounts being marked as placeholder, I wouldn't be surprised if a few of these mounts were given different drop locations. That's all of the mounts from the 2 new zones, but that's not all of the new mounts coming in patch 8.2. The new Pathfinder Part 2 achievement will also bring us the Wonder Wing 2.0 mount, the mechanical parrot that we've been waiting for since it was first previewed. Pathfinder Part 2 isn't all that big of an achievement right now either. All it requires is Pathfinder Part 1 to be completed, which is available right now on live servers, so you have plenty of time to get that done before 8.2 actually launches, and then you need to get to Revered with the 2 new factions in the new 8.2 zones. No exploration, no storyline stuff, no random time gating, just reputation. That sounds pretty easy from where I'm sitting. With flying on board, once again the dev team has decided to add in some new mounts for the older reputation factions as well. So for the Alliance we have the Proudmoor Sea Scout for the Proudmoor Admiralty reputation, the Stormsong Coast Watcher for the Storm's Wake reputation, and the Dusky Waycrest Griffin for the Order of Embers reputation. Each of these mounts will require you to get exalted with the appropriate faction, and they'll cost 50,000 gold each. You might be thinking, oh great, more Griffins. Thanks Blizz for giving us the same model over and over again, but the Horde doesn't get anything super new either. They'll be getting 3 different pterodactyl mounts. The Spectral Terrorwing comes from the Zandalari Empire faction, the Voldenai Dune Scraper will be available from the Voldenai faction, and the Captured Swamp Stalker will be available from Talangi's Expedition. Once again, all require exalted and will cost 50,000 gold. Okay, maybe I lied just a little bit, because this next one is Horde only from what I understand. The Child of Torkali will be given to us to nurture and train, and I guess eventually they grow up big enough for us to ride around on. So this is another little questline where we take care of a hatchling or whatever, just a baby, and eventually it becomes a new mount for us. Because this is all tied to a lower and it's a dinosaur, I don't think the Alliance will have access to this one. Sorry about that. As a quick little aside, a new profession mount is also making its way into patch 8.2. This ATV mount will require both engineering and blacksmithing, and it might be modelled after someone familiar, someone nobody really likes. If you need another hint, just read the first part of this mount's name backwards. That should help. Weirdly, when I recorded this mount on different characters, the colours changed, and I've seen some other colours besides just red and green, so we might have some choice when it comes to the colour of this mount either when we finish crafting it or afterwards, kind of like the Mechagon painting, so that's really exciting. And then the very last mount we have to look at is the B mount, which we still don't know much about. It's supposed to be available in patch 8.2, that's for sure, but nothing directly relating to it has been found, except a few little tidbits of information which point towards a special progression system. There's some new factions called Drone, Honeybee, Queen, and Hive Mother. So this could work in a variety of ways, the first being a new reputation like the Chromie scenario, where we work our way up from a drone all the way to a queen or a hive mother and acquire the mount that way. The other, perhaps more likely way this could work is that we pick up a tiny bee or a drone and we have to nurture it all the way up to a queen or hive mother, by which time it will be big enough for us to ride around on. This could be yet another mount that follows this progression path, much like the Child of Torkali for the Horde in 8.2, which brings up an interesting question. At this point in the expansion, the Horde has already had one of these types of quests. The Child of Torkali will make it too. So, will the B mount only be available for Alliance players? I think that might actually be quite likely, but it's something we'll have to wait to find out. But the B mount should be obtainable when patch 8.2 hits, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was the next big secret that we'll have to decode. And that's all of the new mounts coming in patch 8.2 that we know of so far. What's your favourite mount model from what you've seen so far? Do you prefer the rusty, broken-in versions of the Mechagon mounts, or are you going to go after the super polished, shiny models? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.